Most people do Bulgarian split squats with terrible form. And the most common mistake I see that's easily fixable is that people are using too much elevation underneath the rear foot elevated side. This is especially true if we're using something like a weightlifting bench, especially one of the higher ones. You see, the problem with using too much elevation underneath the rear foot elevated side is that the higher that support is, the more hip extension is required, generally speaking, for us to access that position. Hip extension is the act of the leg coming underneath the body and behind it. You can see if the elevation was lower, the leg would be easier kept underneath the body, but the higher the elevation, the more that leg is going to get dragged behind the body. This is especially challenging to maintain if that front leg is out in front in a degree of hip flexion. Now, there's a lot of dissociation required between both sides of the pelvis. Now, the overwhelming majority of people do not have the hip extension range of motion genuinely to get into a position where that rear foot is elevated on a high bench. So what they're going to do is substitute a lack of that hip extension range of motion with the path of least resistance. And the way they're going to do that is by moving through their low back and moving into back extension. You can see that if I couldn't bring my leg behind my body through the hip itself, what I'm going to do is substitute low back motion. And if I tip my whole pelvis forward like that, that brings my leg further behind me, but it's not because I'm actually moving through the hip joint itself. Now you may be thinking, well, Connor, why don't you just get closer to the bench then? Isn't that going to solve the issue? It can help in the start, but as you descend deeper into hip flexion on the front leg, as you go into that hip flexed position, that will at some point necessitate more hip extension on the back leg in many cases if that elevation is too high. Now you're going to run into that substitution issue at the low back again. So the way that we can circumvent this is two things. The easiest solution is just to use a lower elevation for the back leg and foot. The whole point of that rear leg elevation is to offload weight from the back side to the front side and the working leg side, and to increase the shin angle on that front leg side as well. And in many cases, to get more of that forward shin lean and angle on that front side as well. You can still accomplish the same exact thing by elevating yourself on a couple of 45-pound plates or a couple of small boxes. The other thing is we want to start in the bottom position of the split squat. Don't start at the top and then guess and just hope for the best on the way down. Starting in the bottom will ensure that you are in a good position and that you end in a good position when you get to the bottom of it, which is the hardest part. Making those two changes will make your split squat look and feel a lot better, and you'll be able to better effectively target and load that front side leg.